Okay, thank you everyone for coming. I can't believe that after, 16, 17 years, I probably have to introduce myself because there's so many new faces. My name is George Kiki, and I'm president of LebNet as well as co-founder. And very excited here tonight. Great crowd, lots of new faces. Before I just say a couple of words and introduce our panel, I also want to introduce Mr. Tom Poggiani, who is our new host here at Pillsbury. Some of you have met our former host, and now we have a new host. And we really want to thank Pillsbury every time. This is an amazing venue, amazing view, and they always host us graciously with great location, great food. So I'm going to give Tom a couple of minutes to speak, and I'll...
Oh, I don't need that much, I need 10 seconds. Well, thank you all for coming. It's a pleasure to host you. I am David Angela, you might know him. He moved with his wife to LA. So I was asked to step in his shoes, and I've been told LebNet is an American Lebanon organization. I'm not American nor Lebanese, so I thought it would be a great fit.
But it's Italian.
But I'm Italian, so I'm a great friend of Lebanon and Lebanese people. So, no, thank you for coming. Couple words about Pillsbury and about myself. Pillsbury is the oldest law firm in San Francisco. It's a full-service law firm. We specialize in corporate IP and litigation. I myself deal mostly with startups, tech startups, and that's what I do pretty much, day in and day out. And so thank you. Feel free to stop by at the end of the event if you have any questions about the firm or about what we do. How can we help you? And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Actually, I don't know, but there's a rumor that the founder of Pillsbury is Lebanese, but we haven't really, and I'm joking.
I can't confirm.
I think somebody said. Anyway, okay. No, but I wasn't kidding. I think we heard that. Unfortunately, David's not here to confirm it.
I don't know.
I want to mention one thing before I introduce the panel. We're very excited about a new program that we're launching in a month. I think in August it's going to be launched. You're going to hear about it, so we would like all your support. What it is that we're starting a program called LebNet Ignite, which is going to leverage an accelerator here in the Bay Area, the Black Box Accelerator, and Black Box Accelerator. And so we're actually in the process of vetting some startups in Lebanon. And we're going to bring one of them in August to go through a 2-week program in Palo Alto, and they're going to go through a program that a lot of startups from Europe and Eastern Europe go through. It's a very valuable program for startups who are in a very specific area in their growth. We're on top of that putting a stack of LebNet services, if you wish, because it's our program. So there'll be things like breakfast with a mentor, a walk to the dish with a coach, and maybe a strategic planning dinner with a couple of members of LebNet. So you'll hear more about it. We might tap you on the shoulder either now in August, but we want this to be a continuous program, so there'll be others coming. And it'll be great to host some of the Lebanese startups here. So anyway, I just wanted to sort of pitch that. And then now we're going to introduce our panel. You've all seen the announcement. No need to introduce Simon, of course, who we're all proud of, and basically Rony, who actually spoke at a LebNet event and told us about Peerspace. I'm not going to read your bios because they were posted, and I'm sure everybody went to them. But we felt that Rony is very well positioned to ask all sorts of questions from Simon, sort of from what a CEO of a startup needs to know, and logistically he's going to go through a set of questions, and then if anybody has any questions, you can ask them. There'll be a mic running around. Also, we have a hashtag LebNet started on Twitter. So Mark is in the back. Mark is in the front, actually. We'll be monitoring that. So if you have comments or you even want to ask questions on on the hashtag, go ahead and do it. He can ask a question on your behalf. So you have all options. You can do it yourself. You can do it through the Twitter or go through with maybe sign language to Rony, and then he'll ask a question to Simon. Okay. So anyway, I want to welcome Simon and Rony Chammas.
Thank you, George. Thank you, LebNet, for having us, and everyone for being here. And Simon, thank you.
Thank you.
Been looking forward to chatting with you. So happy it's finally here. So I thought it would be great to start. Most of us in the room come from Lebanese background, or if not something similar. Kind of your experience growing up in Lebanon, and ultimately your decision to come to the States and pursue a career in tech.
So it's probably similar to a lot of people in the room here. The Lebanese value education. So most of us pursue careers that are, after high education. So I grew up in Beirut and Hamra, and went to IC, and then to AUB. Both of my grandparents and my grandma went to AUB, and there's not a lot of career choices, like either doctor or engineer. So, sure, yeah, no worries. So I can't. There's a cardiologist here. I cannot see blood. I faint immediately. So the only choice I had is go to engineering school. So that's what I did. I went to AUB, and I call them the really bad years. So 84 to 88. So and then in 1988 I came to the States through probably 7 airports till I got here. And I went to Syracuse, upstate New York, and then came to the Valley in 1989. So, 1990.
And what were some of the, you have some early companies that you started working for. What were some of those companies, and what were the experiences that you took from that early part of your career?
So actually, I came here to a startup. So I was actually in New York working for Booz Allen, and Booz Allen was doing a lot of computer decentralization work, and I was part of my research assistantship. So I came and I met Eric Schmidt, who was then at Sun, Drew Major, who was with Novell, and Jim Alchin, who were with Microsoft, and said, "What are you doing on this coast? You need to go to the other coast." So I came here, went to a company called Touch Communications, which got acquired by IBM. And then I started a company called WorldTalk in 1992. We went public in 1996. Ironically, the same day Yahoo went public, exactly the same day. So, and we took it public, and then 1999 we sold it, and I started another company with a fellow Lebanese called Just On, which is exactly what Box or Dropbox do today. This is 1999, and then we got bought by Novell under Eric, and I came to Novell. I went from running a team of 6 people to a team of 2,200, and we brought Linux to market. So, and that's kind of what we did. We brought Linux to commodity hardware. We made Linux successful. We didn't make Novell successful. And then we spun a company out of Novell called Volera. Eric Schmidt was CEO. I was president and COO. And then we were in Jersey right after September 11, and he said, "What are you doing for breakfast?" I'm like, "I don't have a car. I can't get on a plane. It's right after September 11. What are you doing for breakfast?" He's like, "Well, let's go have breakfast. I have good news and bad news." I'm like, "What's the good news?" He said, "You're CEO of the company." I'm like, "Where are you going?" He said, "That's the good news. I'm going to Google." I'm like, "You're going to go from having several private jets to go sit in a cubicle?" And he said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So then I became CEO of Volera, which Novell bought back. And then I jumped out of it and went to a security company called Vernier, which actually I spent 40 years. We were early, and it did not work out. We actually competed with Cisco, and Cisco crushed us. So I ended up coming to Flurry, the wireless space, and spent about 6 years in Flurry, got acquired by Yahoo, and now at Yahoo.
That's great.
A lot of learnings.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of nuggets in there that I want to get to
Sure.
a little bit later.
Sure.
But I'm interested to know, when you joined Flurry to the time that it was acquired, the changes So how many people were at Flurry when you joined?
So there were actually, I mean, it's an interesting story. So I was working on a company called Newsbox, which is in the news space, and I wanted to change the way news is consumed and created. And I had not seen the iPhone, but I know Phil Schiller, who's the chief marketing guy at Apple, and he showed me the iPhone. And then I was at a Churchill Club talking about the potential of mobile, and then I had John Fisher, who was Draper Fisher Jervis in one of the VCs, said, look, this is the company called Flurry, you should definitely talk to them. And I looked at it, they do mail. And then a good friend of mine, George, he's sitting here. Hey, George. So he actually had an exec recruiter say, hey, you need to talk to Simon. I think he's already talking to Flurry. So he passed them my way. I had a good meeting with them. And I did not connect the two together until the meeting. And there were only 5 people. They wasted most of their money. But what I did is I recapped the company and changed the business model. And then so there were 5 people.
So you joined Flurry in sort of desperate times. It sounded like there were a lot of changes that needed to be.
That's right. That was a week before Lehman Brothers went under. So, and when Sequoia had the rest in peace thing, as in no one can raise money and that kind of thing, and again, like living in Lebanon, that like near-death experiences happen every day. So that was like, all the VCs were running for the hill, and we were like going up Sandton Road pitching how great mobile is going to be. So like the same thing in Lebanon, like there's a bomb, you go clean the glass, and you say party tomorrow. So it's the same thing. So I think it was a very difficult time, but I think we caught mobile very early, and we became a very strong presence on mobile, and I think the outcome was good.
And what do you think was, if you could boil it down to 1 or 2 key points or strategies that you implemented that helped you break through and ultimately become a leader in mobile analytics?
So, it's like the story of every startup. You have to look at the team. You always have to recruit top talent. Like there's no room for a number 2. You always have to seek a great team. The second one is you have to differentiate against competitors. Like there was Google Analytics, very well established, and every VC said there's no way you're going to compete with Google. But you focus on a narrow area and you do a great job. And then a clear monetization strategy. Like I don't buy the, hey, let's collect DAUs and the money comes later. You have to build monetization from day one. And we had a clear path. A lot of focus on strategic maneuvering and operational excellence. We were very early adopter of phenomenal technology. Like again, you want to collect big data at an insane rate coming from a mobile device. You have to invest in a great technology, and that's what we did. We still operate the largest HBase, which is the technology used to collect a lot of data. It's interesting now that we're part of Yahoo. Yahoo built Hadoop and HBase before they gave it out, and ironically, we run a larger cluster than Yahoo. So and our team were 5 people. Our platform team were 5 people. And you look at the equivalent team at Yahoo, it's about 100. So it's about being very efficient. I have something like I called ethics, which is efficiency, transparency, humility, innovation, and then customer focus, and last but not least, speed. If you got those, you effectively have a good startup, and that's what I always look for.
Should write that down afterwards. That was good. And so you mentioned Yahoo.
Yeah.
When did they come knocking, and was it the acquisition that you had in mind?
So it's actually a very long story, so we can probably spend the whole night. But so actually, we were not looking, and I strongly recommend that a startup does not look to be acquired. That's when, with the moment you start saying, I want to be acquired, you lose 50% of your valuation. We actually recruited a banker, a fellow Lebanese, of course, that probably a lot of you know, George Boutros, and we were actually acquiring the company. So we were in the process, so we recruited Catalyst. to help us buy another company and put it on the IPO track. And when Catalyst came in and said, I have a lot of inbound interest, are you guys interested? And, I felt the board was going to say, oh, no way. Oh, all of a sudden the board said, oh, no, we're willing to entertain offers. So we went through an interesting process because we were trying to buy a company and at the same time trying to be acquired. So we had to balance that. And we met with 3 companies on the inbound side. We got 2 term sheets, and then we went with Yahoo.
And in hindsight, I mean, we can talk a bit more about how it's been the transition into Yahoo. Them as the acquirer. What are some of the? Are you happy with it?
Yeah, of course. Acquisition are like marriages. Like by definition, you have to adjust to them. Like you start when you marry somebody, you start losing 50% of everything you have to them. But they start also gaining 50% of everything they give you. So it's an adjustment period. And that's not my first, because I've done 22 transactions, 7 on the selling side and the rest on the inbound side. And again, it's all about how to land an acquisition. And how are you going to play a big role inside a much larger company? And it is no secret that Yahoo is not, like Google and Facebook, growing leaps and bounds. We still have our challenges. So a lot of the team members were concerned, like how are we going to fit within the broader Yahoo? But we felt that we would have the most impact within Yahoo, because we're a team of 110 mobile experts that are coming in, and we can work together. And the outcome has been amazing. 2 of myself, I run the media group, which is, can't disclose number, but it's a significant number of Yahoo's $4.5 billion business. Probably the largest, Mark, I think. We are the largest group. And then, so I run that, and our chief product officer, Prashant, is running the ads group. So already, 2 execs from Flurry are running the majority and a good portion of Yahoo's product groups. So I think it's been a very good experience so far.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, I was mentioning that I use Yahoo apps a lot on my phone. And I do think, from a mobile standpoint, it did make sense, for you to come into Yahoo, and clearly you're making an impact. Is there a certain trend in mobile that you're seeing now that you think is going to dictate the next 5 to 10 years in mobile?
There's a lot. Yeah. So a lot of the VCs are kind of looking at the next generation, which is either virtual reality or I'd say the Internet of Things. Mobile is still in its very, in my opinion, early years of innovation. There's so many things that mobile has not disrupted. So I think of 3 tracks that I believe are extremely interesting. The first one is mobile-driven marketplaces. I hate to call it the Uber of everything, but it is things that require the distributed labor or distributed workforce that you can reach within a mobile device. Like news consumption would be another. Out of 1 billion people, somebody saw something. And if you can harness that and deliver it to the consumer, it's amazing. There's one thing we're actually announcing tomorrow. Tomorrow's our shareholders meeting, and market is closed. So we're not going to make a big thing about it. We're announcing something on top of the Tumblr platform, which I'm very proud of, which is, if you look at advertising agencies, creative is the largest margin. They have folks that spend tons of time on creative. On the Tumblr platform alone, we have about 11 million designers that log in every day. So we're announcing something called the associated agency called Creator, allowing brands to go and say, this is what I need done. All 11 million people compete on that creative, and then we build the marketplace for it so that they can pay a creator to create and iterate extremely fast on advertising and target crowds like billion people. So I think mobile-driven marketplaces, I think, are going to be very, very big. And the second one, I believe, content delivery and content consumption. So when you cater, think about it, how much time people spend catering to a 3 million people audience, which is the size of Baltimore and Baltimore area. How much, to give you an example, well, when you have 1 billion people, their interest is so diverse that you cannot cater to 1 billion people and please them. Well, on Flurry alone, we have close to 1.6 billion devices that we see on a daily basis, 700 million on an hourly basis, that you have to please that. So content delivery, consumption, be able to create media, there's tons of opportunity. And last but not least, I call them people-to-people transactions, so using blockchain as a protocol. So if you look at what do governments do? I mean, Lebanon is another but look at government, any third party in the middle, they slow things down. But they provide trust. They provide some form of stability. But if you look at most transactions, if you date it back to Suq Awqaz, which is how people did trade, it was based on people-to-people trust. So if I want to give you money, why do I need a bank in the middle? You don't. And if I need to exchange goods with you, why do you need a distributor in the middle? Like what do? They take credit risk away, they provide trust, they provide inventory rotation, but if everything is on demand, like when you order a computer, they're building it on the fly in China and then they ship it to you. So what I call people-to-people marketplaces is another area that I think mobile can do a phenomenal job. So that's on the mobile side. Those are the 3 areas that I think are very interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm all for marketplaces that eliminate the middleman.
Yeah.
So I'm big in favor of that. And I think Tumblr is a really interesting platform. We were also talking earlier about how Taylor Swift used it to actually influence Apple to change their policy on Apple Music.
Yep.
And that's a really interesting, marketplace to add on to Tumblr. I think it's really interesting, harnessing creatives in that way and using that medium for it. Wanted to take a step back. So you've now been through 2 tech booms, late 90s and the current one. What in your mind are the sort of real big differences between the 2 that are happening?
I see it's quite a few. I think the first boom was the beta. Now this is the real one. So, and probably there's going to be even a bigger one. But let's look at some numbers. Like in the height of the 2000 bubble, there was 22 million worldwide broadband users. 22 million worldwide, out of which probably 11 million were in the United States. And right now, just on Flurry alone, we see 1.6 billion broadband users a day. So just to give you the size. So the noise has been they use that multiplier is probably like 50, hang on, I do my math, but about 80 times bigger. So the noise and the signal are compounded 80 times. So that's number one. Number 2 is, so the market is much bigger. The barriers are actually really down. So if you look at, Alibaba, very strong in China, now they're thinking about Japan, they're thinking about India, we know a little bit about them. We still own about 16% of them. So they're thinking India, which is $1 billion market that's still untapped. And so the market is bigger. The third thing is, despite those ridiculous valuations that you're hearing about, the companies that are being invested in actually have a model that works. So while compared to the 2000, people were investing in vaporware. The revenues did not exist, the DAUs did not exist, the user acquisition strategy did not exist. The LTV was dramatically lower than the cost of user acquisition. So it's kind of like you flip the P&L, it looks good, but by definition, the P&L flows one way. So I think I would not qualify what we're doing right now in Silicon Valley as a bubble. I completely agree with Andreessen Horowitz that we're not in a bubble yet.
Well, that's good to hear. And I agree, the valuations are justified.
Some, yeah.
Some of them, yeah. Those that are making money.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of a self-serving question, but I'm holding the microphone, so I'm going to ask it. We also have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. So those of us who are starting a company for the first time, I'm a first-time founder, what are some three best advice you could give to us, and then I want to hear about perhaps navigating the VC landscape.
Sure. So the first advice is don't give up. You cannot give up. So perseverance is the number one thing. The second thing, I mentioned it, always hire A talent. Even so, A, not B. B always hires C. So even if it takes you 6 months instead of 3 months, hire top talent. And then the third advice I would say is you gotta focus on execution. So I know it is like basic, but put a plan and hit a plan. Like don't go to the board and give them the most optimistic plan. Give them a realistic plan. Again, it's about accuracy. So say, this is my plan, and that's what you get measured on, and that's what you measure your team on. And don't be overly ambitious. It's okay to dream big, but put reasonably unreasonable goals in front of you, and then you succeed. In terms of the VC landscape, it's kind of like dating. You kind of like, you have to convince them that you don't need them. That's when they chase you. So the best time to raise money is when you don't need money. So they do have a lemming behavior. So one person puts a term sheet, then 17 of them call the second day to put an even better term sheet. So it's kind of like getting the first one. So there's no, I say, silver bullet. And no matter what people tell you, it is a very humiliating and humbling experience. Rejection is hard. So, and you will be rejected. So it's perseverance, and it's about, telling VCs you don't need them. But I also caution that with a VC world, you're working with a partner, not with a partnership. So you have to select the partner that believes in what you're doing, and connect with a lot of entrepreneurs and actually interview them about that board member. Because he or she is probably the most important hire. And I say hire because you're hiring a board member as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I agree with you. So let's say you're able to cross the barrier, you get the VC, get them on the board. At that point, what is a strategy for navigating that relationship and ensuring that it's a really positive relationship? Trust and communications. Again, open communication. Don't hide anything from you. Like, again, I go back to the basics. Like, when you break the lampshade, the best time to say that you broke the lampshade is exactly when you broke it. Don't go get like the glue and hide it and turn it so that your parents don't figure out. So always have an open communication. Every Monday, there was an email from me to my board. This is like what happened, kind of like a status report, even if they did not read it, because it's an open communications. And consider them part of the team. Look, there isn't much they can do except hire you or fire you or block you or help you raise money. The rest, it's you. But I would say that, and every startup CEO probably came very close to being fired. No questions about it. Again, I call it the Lebanese near-death experience. You look at all this room, we've all had a bomb fall like 3 meters away from us, or been sniped at, or kidnapped 2 to 3 times, and look, we're still here. Yeah, I mean, you look at Lebanon. I mean, name one country that can absorb 30% of its population and still survive. What happens if 100 Mexicans walk into the United States? We'll probably die out of hunger 3 days. Like Safeway will not have enough inventory of food. Lebanon absorbed 1.5 million refugees in 1 year, and people are still eating and eating very well. So I think it's resilience that helps. So I would say that there is definitely the element of trust and open communication with the board and being resilient. There's no egos with board. VCs have a lot of egos. It's good to hear that being Lebanese gives you a leg up dealing with VCs. One step away there.
It's called battle hardened.
All right, so last set of questions, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So I'm interested to know if you had a mentor or mentors growing up, or as you were progressing through your career, and how you found them, and was it valuable, and suggestions for some of us looking for mentors?
Great question. Yes, I've had quite a few. And the first one, I'd say, was Mark Leslie. He was on a World Talks board, and he's a professor at Stanford. He was CEO of Veritas. And when I actually, World Talk so I was the founder of World Talk, and then we brought a CEO. And then when we went public, a year later, the board kicked him out. And they asked me to step up. And Mark kind of gave me, say, hey, you're going to be CEO. Let me give you a few tricks. And he says, it's not about making small decisions every day. Your role as a CEO is going to come down to 2 to 3 very key decisions you have to make. And those decisions are going to be very hard, and you're going to feel very lonely. And he said, put yourself in front of a mirror and debate it with yourself. And if it makes sense to you, then make that call. And that was a very good advice. The other one, I'd say Eric Schmidt was a very good mentor. And Eric taught me to think big. He actually called me the cheapo Lebanese because I was all about cutting costs and managing. One day, and I remember that, we made a $100 million investment in Whitman Hart, which I was completely against. And then $50 million in CMGI on vaporware. I mean, a lot of you here were too young to even remember who they were. And then I had my one-on-ones with him. And then he said, so I told him I had this really big idea. It was called Digital Me. If you remember this is what Facebook sign-in is, which is unified identity you take with you. You trust one entity, and you don't have to remember gazillion passwords. And then you, as a consumer, decide what you share with a publisher. Even Facebook is not at that stage yet. And then he told me, how much money do you need to build it? And Microsoft was building Passport. So, and I gave him a plan, $20 million. He closed the book and he said, I have one problem with you. You don't think big enough. If you think with $20 million you can create the world's largest passport, then we're failing. So help me think big. Even if you execute in small steps, think big. So he was a very good mentor, and he's a great mentor. And I like that, and now I have a great relationship with Marissa because Eric was her mentor. And a lot of times she says something, and I look at her as I know where that came from.
Cool. And what about for Lebanese? I was fortunate. I grew up in the Bay Area. That's not the case for a lot of Lebanese entrepreneurs that are out there. How can someone, whether they're back in Lebanon or just moved here, how can they seek mentorship and then possibly get access, to someone like you who's obviously extremely busy but has a wealth of knowledge and experience to share?
Well, I mean, LebNet has a good program. I mean, again, it starts with networking. I mean, I'll say that the Semites, I don't want to call them Lebanese and Israelis and whatever, we're genetically wired towards entrepreneurship. Literally, you drop a Lebanese in a remote area, all of a sudden they know everybody and they start opening things. It's fascinating. Give you a weird example. I was once in Southeast Asia, in Hong Kong, and I was actually walking back to a hotel. And I took the wrong street, and it's it was rough. And I enter the store, and I saw Lebanese food. Whoa! So I go in, and hey, there was another Lebanese who's been in Hong Kong, and I asked him the story. The guy came, had no money, and turns out now he owns a massive grocery store chain. So you need to have predisposition towards entrepreneurship. And networking, I mean, that's, unfortunately, the Lebanese are not very good at it. It's we're a little bit tribal, but I think networking is very important. And it doesn't have to be Lebanese. You definitely, networking is key. And from there, there's a lot of great programs. Y Combinator is a good program, but they're not alone. So mentorship, I think LebNet team is trying to put together a good mentor team. And the other, again, resilient. This is still so many opportunities for innovation.
So are you a believer in incubators? You mentioned Y Combinator.
Don't know yet. I think it's a model that is interesting, and it has graduated a lot of good startups. I'm not sure there's a unique model that is a guaranteed success. I mean, this is not the first time an incubator has been started or been shut down. So there's going to be multiple iterations. I believe like the VC model works. A lot of people try to innovate in, I think, Andreessen Horowitz, which is a huge company now by any VC standard, they're definitely trying to innovate. But I think the model works. Either you go the seed route, like the angel route, then go Series A, B, C, and what have you, or go through an incubator. Both paths work.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And LebNet Ignite is one of those opportunities I think is great for entrepreneurs coming from Lebanon.
Yep.
So I wanted to now turn it to the audience and see if there's any questions from the crowd. You can also check the Twitter hashtag.
Anything on Twitter, Mark?
I have a question actually.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mark, and full disclosure, I work at Yahoo, so Simon's technically my boss. Anyway, just a quick question. I don't see you wearing an Apple Watch. May I ask why, and how do you see this like in the next 5 years, let's say?
So, good question. So, I'm not a gadget guy because whatever gadget I buy, my daughter takes it. So, it's still early. Wearables, again, is about fashion, and I think the killer app has not been discovered. So, if you look at the early days, when I saw the iPhone, I saw it. Like Phil showed it to me, and I'm like, wow, this is everything but a phone. And like, can you imagine computing in your pocket and the endless possibilities? And it takes time for platforms to stabilize. Like, think about it. It took 30 years for storage to be a commodity. Right now, Amazon gives you like elastic storage. Like, when I graduated, like, storage was not even a commodity. And now it takes a while. And if you look at like the iPhone, you look at the top grossing apps, 60% are games, 40% are actually music, which was the two killer applications for the phone. And now dating, and then social, and blah, blah, blah. And utilities are growing. So the killer application on the watch, I believe, has not been discovered. I think healthcare has a huge platform. Definitely music, media, and entertainment, transportation. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why Google Maps need to run on the phone instead of running on the watch. So I think you're going to see a lot of applications. But wearables are hard. I mean, it's something that has a fashion element in it, and a fashion statement in it. So I think the application will define the platform versus the platform will define application. But we are seeing, you have the login to the dashboard. So we are seeing great traction in the watch. So I'd say it's landing moderately. I wouldn't say, Apple's quarter hasn't ended. So I think there's some really good watches being sold. And how many apps have we seen submitted? Like over 400 apps that are being used aggressively. So I think there's some good traction, but I would not say it's a phenomenally wild success yet.
Hi, my name is Alicia. Sorry, you mentioned commoditization, but you also mentioned performing on the basic execution of the software. How do those two mesh? Because I would assume that if it's commoditized, then people know how it should work to begin with, or should be people looking for a specialized application or next big thing instead of competing in the existing market?
Yeah, so again, there's a big difference between a commodity and another. So what I mean, a commodity is something that everybody should use. So that's when something reaches the commodity level. But in terms of innovation, the big risk people think is that you can bring yourself to distinction through extinction. So let me give you an example. Probably Netscape would be the closest example that comes to mind. People were willing to pay for enterprise software. Like the Netscape started the browser war, now Microsoft. Microsoft was charging $39.99 for Explorer. Netscape came and gave it away for free. So the risk of what I say, early commoditization is very hard. and I think could be fatal to companies. Look at mobile as an example. People say the internet trained people not to pay for content. Not true on mobile. If you actually look at the gaming industry, they're making phenomenal amount of money on mobile. Like somebody like Machine Zone, they're making $2 million a day in mobile. Same thing with music. Now, granted, thank you, Taylor Swift negotiated on behalf of the entire industry for royalties from Apple. But I think the concept of what I call early commoditization is very risky.
A question around picking up finding co-founders.
Can you tell us
And-
your name?
Oh, Camille. That's Camille. So like, what worked better? What worked worse for finding the co-founders early on? Or what worked good and I guess not very well after in the kind of continuous relationship with them going after?
Great question. Great question. Again, that's one of the toughest things. But I come back to, do they share the same values? And it's hard to gauge that. If you are an early entrepreneur, the best one is team up with somebody who's done it before. Kind of call it like chase a path that has almost a guaranteed success. Make a name for yourself and then drag somebody with you. There's never an equal relationship between founders. There's always one that goes up, and it's human nature. Nothing is ever equal. There's always a margin of error. So, but again, the value system. So, like, sit down and say, what are you trying to achieve from this? And you will, and I'd say economically, work it in a way that it's not an even democracy. So, for example, if your cap table split 50-50 and the founders have equal votes, that's when you go into deadlock. So, which we're very good at governing in Lebanon. We've always made balanced into a great deadlock. But yeah, right. So, or the lack of progress. So make sure you set it up in a way that is not gridlock. So even if one person owns more than the other, it's c'est la vie. So again, I'll come back to three basics. One is, do you share the same value system? And number two is make sure one is higher than the other. And the third, which I say with the silver bullet, is team up with somebody who's done it before. And then once you do it, then drag somebody with you.
My name is Christopher. My question was just around Yahoo. Some years ago, there was an email that was leaked called the Peanut Butter Manifesto about spreading yourself too thin. I'm curious about what things you say no to and how you decide that.
I say no to a lot of things. Great question. And I'm going through that at Yahoo right now, and it's not easy. Actually, I have a filter that I use now. Is it mobile first? Does it have community engagement? How fast can it spread without marketing dollars? If you don't have all these three covered, then I say project not funded. So you look at the era and you apply what are the three little tricks that need to work. So I am shutting down projects, and you have to do that. So now going back historically, since the 90s, basic business judgment. So again, you go back to team, market, plan, and then execution. So is the team solid? So if the team that's proposing it is solid, you gotta grade it higher. The market, how competitive are we? And is it different than everything out there? And your differentiation has to be visible. Like if you have to explain why you're gonna be different, then you have failed. Like for example, I'll give you a clear example. Like you look at Twitter, and first you look at the team. And no disrespect, they have a great team. But if you cannot retain talent, which is the case, I mean, there's only Adam, Kevin, and Dick. Dick is gone. Now there's Adam and Kevin. And Jack is back. I mean, we have a history to bring back a lot of people. Even in the States now we have two presidents that their brothers or their husbands or whatever. but I mean, there are other people in the valley than these three. So can you attract talent? The second one, differentiation. And the third one, execution. Like, is it technology risk? Is it market risk? Is your LTV higher than your CPA? And then you decide to fund it or not. Then you have what I call the gray area, which is, damn, this is a great idea. And if you don't let the team innovate, they're going to be frustrated. So I say, fail often, fail early. So you fund it, and you give them a milestone. They hit it, you give them the next milestone. And then, but you might get emotionally attached to it. But give you an example, at Flurry, we iterated a lot. Give you several examples. So one of them is we built a game distribution business with Activision, the world's largest game distributor. And we thought we have all this data on gaming. We can definitely build the best distribution network. And we did. The problem is gaming is a hit-driven industry. Once you have a hit, you start making so much money, they don't need us. So as a publisher, like you basically created the worst enemy. It's kind of like whoever discovered Madonna and did not negotiate rights to everything she will do for 50 years is screwed. And that's the problem with gaming. So we shut it down 6 months after. The second one is we wanted to work with the developers early on. So we acquired a company called Trestle, which competes with Parse, which is what Facebook bought. We were going neck and neck with Facebook, and we realized if we work with the developers early, then you kind of have them for life. But we realized that what we do is more helping the product manager and the business analyst and the monetization person either attract a better audience or make money. We did not have, we were actually probably overly ambitious, thinking that we were catering to the engineer. And we actually failed. So within 3 months, and I said, we cannot continue doing this. And the board fought me over this, said, you're being way too aggressive on this. Let's give them another 3 months. I'm like, no, the writing is on the wall. They said, they told me, you're too myopic. You're focused on taking the company public. I'm like, no, I've done this before. And once you don't see the telltales, shut it down as fast as possible, even if the team is hurt. I think it's important. So to summarize, basic business judgment. Treat it as if, and that's what I tell the team, I'm your VC. Come and pitch, and you have to convince me. Then you get funded. If not, then give them a chance. And if they succeed, they succeed. If not,
Any questions on this side? Questions? Come on. I know you have a lot of questions. Elite?
I have a question, and I hope you can answer. It's about with Yahoo.
you want to get me fired.
So you're not going to tell us anything that is not public news. And Marissa has been trying to put Yahoo on a growth path. And many of the things that we hear about, from going mobile to content to gaming to all that stuff, is something that is in the news, but then yet hasn't worked.
So you mean, I'm sorry, like our strategy hasn't worked, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, the strategy is there. People kind of like, let's go mobile, let's
Sure.
go content, let's
Sure.
go news, let's go media.
Sure.
And it's been a few years. And so what has been the obstacle to actually get Yahoo on that
Great
track?
question. So actually, sometimes like going and doing a CAT scan gives you a lot of comfort. Like, and I wish we can be more transparent and disclose some of the great stuff we have. I mean, we have products that are growing extremely fast. Actually, tomorrow we're going to celebrate one product that's phenomenally growing. And we can't disclose it because you have this big melting ice cube, which is called the traditional business, that is keeping us from showing tremendous growth in a lot of areas. So we're making bets. And I'll tell you, I will defend Marissa publicly, and I'll defend her in her face. She's a phenomenal visionary. She's a great leader. And it's not easy to turn a big ship around. It wasn't easy for Apple. I remember, I'll give you an example of how bad it got at Apple. So at World Talk, Apple was a customer. We got worried whether they will actually pay us. So we actually went and bought an insurance. So from AIG, like you can buy that like on payables. So like and we put Apple on top of that list. It was that bad. And look, they came back. Look at IBM. In 2002, I was between Volera and Vernier, and I did some work for IBM. And I had one meeting with Sam Palmisano, and he told me, look, when I came here, like people did not want to go to work. They were so depressed. And look at where we are today. So, and we're very clear where we are. Now, the street might not enjoy it because there's the Alibaba specter. Like right now, we're a tracking stock for Alibaba. That's all what we are. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait for us to start being measured on our own merits. So it starts with people, then products, then revenue. So we're beefing up the team, we're building great products, and then revenue will come. So let's talk about some specific products that we have already semi-announced. So we already talked about a little bit about daily fantasy. We talked about it in our earnings, so it's not a secret anymore. That's a massive area for growth. We have a huge dominance in sports, so you're going to see something major from us soon that we're very excited about. We talked about mobile search. We're investing a lot in mobile search, and you look at the mobile landscape, and consumers don't search the same way they search on the desktop. So we're catering to that experience. And then look at Tumblr. The growth is fascinating. And we're the only platform where you can create content. If you look at Twitter, it's very hard to communicate in 140 characters. I mean, humanity has failed to communicate in Morse code. I mean, militaries, people do. Yes, no, fire, not fire. But the humanity needs more. And in Facebook, you're just amplifying content. When was the last time you wrote an article on Facebook? Or you don't do that. The content that's on Facebook is the family pictures. But what is being consumed on Facebook is content created somewhere else. We're the only platform. I mean, I'm fascinated by the content that's being created on Tumblr. Whether it's Taylor Swift or Anthony Bourdain. If you go, when he went to Beirut, it's anthonybourdain.tumblr.com. And you have these literally fascinating kids creating amazing content. So there's a lot of green sprouts that are within the company. And I'm actually very excited about a lot of the growth areas. Now, granted, we're not Facebook. And Facebook, I believe, and neither is Google for the mobile world. I think Facebook has nailed mobile because they could. Like Mark Zuckerberg made the decision. I'm going mobile and native, and everybody else followed. And right now, if you look at the top apps on the App Store, it's all Facebook. So I think we have a very, very solid chance.
Right, because I'm so interested and fascinated, so I wanted more people to ask questions. This is so exciting. By the way, Simon, I was thinking, can we auction off dinner with you or something? I'm sure
You don't want to go to dinner with me
We're
because
right
I'm gonna have twins coming in 3 weeks. So
Oh, wow.
You should auction babysitting then.
yeah.
Hi, Simon. Mark Karam. A quick question for you. What are your top 3 interview questions for leaders?
Oh, great question. So I'll tell you actually what I look for a person. Would I work with him? Would I work for him one day? So is that a person I can work for? So it's an unfair question because it depends on technical versus not technical. So on the technical side, so I rarely interview engineers, but engineering leadership, I ask for innovation. What have you innovated? And show it to me. So the second one is, how much do you delegate? And how fast can you deliver? And last but not least, a quality index. Do you know the quality of what you generate? On the sales side, I mean, marketing is again, on the sales side, I ask for accuracy. Like, show me your pipeline and what you said you were going to deliver compared to what you delivered. So I look for accuracy. I hate surprises, positive or negative. So I seek for accuracy. On the marketing side, I look for efficiency. Like, tell me, like, without spending money, like if you had zero budget, what would you do? And now you realize whether they can innovate, they can be creative, or not. So it depends on the and to be honest with you, on the CFO, it's about a personal relationship and trust. TSOs know how to add numbers, so you don't want to question them about SOX compliance. It's about, look, is this person dependable? So the question I asked them is, what were the 3 calls that you get from your CEO that you were not ready for? And you'd be surprised with the answer. Sorry, that was a long-winded question, but it depends on the.
That's great.
There's one more over here.
Yeah.
So, are you seeing a blurring of the lines between the B2B and the B2C segments these days?
So Jessica Lesson wrote a great article, which is the failure of the consumerization of the consurprise or whatever, the consumerization of the enterprise. This week. It was a very thoughtful article. It's the information. Of course, like there's a lot of consumer products that eventually make it to the enterprise, but it's a completely different beast. And it requires several iterations. Like Slack, I think I was talking to Anton, right? Anton, yeah. So about like that would be an example where a consumer application moved into the enterprise while it was designed for consumer communications. The data is sparse, and I'd say not good for a product that starts on the consumer side and then eventually makes it to the enterprise. So give you an example. How long has it taken Google Docs to even become an enterprise product? 11 years. No VC has the patience to do that. So I'd say focus on the enterprise if you're enterprise, focus on the consumer if you're consumer.
Okay, we can take one more to give Simon a rest.
So, Naji, my name is Naji. If you look back when you arrived to the US and knowing what you know today, what would you advise yourself?
Don't have that silly accent. It's a good question. I would probably have chosen a higher caliber university. I was accepted at Irvine, I was accepted at MIT, and I was accepted in Syracuse. And I chose Syracuse because, like a lot of my friends were going there. So the good university gives you a phenomenal networking opportunity. So I would choose the pedigree. Not because it's a pedigree, it's because the type of people, again, it's self-selecting. So that's the advice I would give. Like seek the Stanford, seeks the Harvard, seek the top-notch education. It's probably the best investment you can do. Because not the education, it is the networking that you do in these universities. Chicken house.
Okay, Jennifer.
Yeah.
We'll let Jennifer be the last one.
That's
right.
So I'm Jennifer. Where do you see yourself going from now on? What's your big vision for the future? Do you see yourself staying with Yahoo, or do you have other ideas that may branch out later on? How do you see yourself in the future?
Carrying 2 kids and being yelled at.
Sounds good.
So no, I'm very happy, at Yahoo, and you can never say never. I have a lot of good ideas, and I do like investments. I have several good ideas that I think Yahoo's not interested in. But I definitely see myself staying at Yahoo for a long period of time. We have a very good team. My team is, I divided them into 6 swim lanes. And each lane is actually has, I think we can build a $10 billion company out of every swim lane. So, and I'm putting together a very strong leadership team. And I believe I'll stay there for a while. Now, in terms of, there's the one thing I didn't mention, the Internet of Things is interesting. Like, again, especially for big data and abilities in the medical field, like having like devices talk to each other to solve, like, if you can save a life, if you're like 5 minutes early to a heart attack and you save something, that's so valuable. So I think that could be achieved with the Internet of Things, which is, look, it's not that hard in order to analyze a pattern and realize it is going to occur. Predictive, like we see it in analytics, like we know when a game is going to churn. Like now to a level of accuracy. And a lot of times you take a lot of medical data, so that's a very interesting field. If you take HICFA and HIPAA and all the regulations out. So that's a field I'm interested in.
And we of course want to see him as CEO at Yahoo before he leaves, right?
We have a great one.
Listen, we're gonna thank them. Wait a second. We're featuring someone. We usually feature young entrepreneurs for like 5 minutes to just deliver an idea. So before I introduce the person, please, really thank you so much. Rony Chammas, founder and CEO of Peerspace. Okay, I want to introduce very quickly before you start the networking again. Karim Atiye, right?
Yeah.
From Paribus. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks. So I'm Karim Atiye, and thanks Simon. Actually, Simon was one of the earliest ones to hear about the Paribus idea, and now we're here following his advice. So I'm working with Mark and Andrew on this. All 3 of us were at Harvard together. We're doing Y Combinator this summer, and I'm just very happy to be here and meet all of you. So what is Paribus? So basically what we do is get each one of you money back without you having to do anything. Now, I know that sounds too good to be true, but really it's really simple. So you buy a TV on Amazon.com for $500. A few days later, it goes on sale. It's $400. Well, 1, you don't know that, and 2, you probably don't know that you're eligible to get your money back. So what we do is we get you all that money without you having to lift a finger. It's an app that syncs with your mailbox, tracks all the things that you bought through email, and whenever you bought something that drops in price, or you miss a coupon, or you missed a 25% sale at Macy's or something like that, we contact the store on your behalf, get you the money back, and take a cut. And so that's about it. So I definitely want to have you as users. Andrew's releasing the app very soon. Yeah.
And I like your app. So you get the money from, let's say if you bought it from Macy's. You get the discount from Macy's?
Absolutely, yeah. So we'll contact Macy's on your behalf, tell them what you bought. And
what's the minimum? $10?
Jennifer is not working with Neiman Marcus, so forget it.
Actually, right. So we filed $1 claims with Amazon, and those worked fine. We've also filed $400 claims on bed sheets the other day, and that worked fine. We've grown from 1,000 to 10,000 users in the past month, and that's hopefully not stopping.
It's gonna be big.
11,000 today.
So what do they need to know? Download the app?
So the app is coming out soon, but it's really an invisible app for now. You can go on the website, sync up your mailbox, and you're done. You'll just get emails when you save money. That's about it.
Okay. Good.